vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction. He chose evil.
Stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep, in the middle of the night, like a pedophile, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass.
What if the person warning you about a dangerous criminal was actually warning the criminal himself? What if everything you thought you knew about the Idaho case was about to be flipped upside down? Bryan Kohberger's sister just broke her silence, and what she revealed in her first ever interview will send chills down your spine. Before we dive deep into this bombshell interview that has the entire nation talking, I need you to do something for me. This case claimed 4 beautiful souls: Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. These weren't just names in a headline. They were children, friends, students with dreams bigger than the sky. If you believe they deserve justice, if you believe their families deserve peace, type amen in the comments right now. Let's fill this comment section with prayers for these families. And while you're down there, tell me where you're watching from. Are you from Idaho? Washington? Are you watching from across the world? Drop your location because this case has touched people globally, and I want to know how far this story has reached. My name is True Crime Footnotes, and I'm an unsolved case analyst. Now, before you think this is just another true crime channel, let me tell you why I do this. When I was growing up, I lost both of my parents to a crime that to this day remains unsolved. My mother and father never got justice. Their case file sits somewhere collecting dust, and their killer walks free, breathing the same air you and I breathe right now. That pain, that emptiness, that burning question of why, it never leaves you. It becomes part of your DNA. And that's why I became an unsolved case analyst. Because every case I cover, every document I read, every prison record I obtain, it's for my parents. It's for Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. It's for every family still waiting for answers. Let me be real with you for a second. This work is exhausting. I travel city to city, sometimes sleeping in my car to save money so I can afford court documents. Prison records? They cost hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. There are days I want to quit. Days when the weight of all these stories crushes me. Days when I wonder if any of this matters. But then I think about my parents. I think about you, yes, you watching this right now, who might be going through the same thing. And I remember why I can't quit. I won't quit. If this content matters to you, if you want to see more deep dives like this, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It takes 1 second, and it tells YouTube that this work matters. Because every subscriber, every like, every share, it allows me to keep digging, keep investigating, keep fighting for justice. Now let's get into it. November 13th, 2022. Moscow, Idaho. A college town where people didn't lock their doors. Where the biggest concern was making it to class on time or what party to attend on the weekend. That night, 4 University of Idaho students went to sleep in their beds at 1122 King Road. By the next morning, all 4 would be gone, taken in one of the most brutal crimes this nation has ever seen. Kaylee Goncalves, 21 years old. Her whole life ahead of her. She'd just gotten a job lined up after graduation. She was planning her future with her high school sweetheart. She loved her dog, Murphy. She was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. Madison Mogen, also 21. Kaylee's best friend. They were inseparable. Maddie wanted to make a difference in the world. She was studying marketing, had dreams of traveling, of building something meaningful. They called her Maddie. Everyone loved Maddie. Xana Kernodle, 20 years old. Bright, funny, full of life. She was studying marketing and IT. She had her whole career mapped out. She was in love, planning a future with her boyfriend. Ethan Chapin, 20 years old. A triplet. Can you imagine what his siblings are going through? He was studying recreation, sport, and tourism management. He was an athlete, a brother, a son, a friend. He was at that house visiting his girlfriend Xana that night. Wrong place, wrong time? Or was he targeted too? For lives. 4 families destroyed. A community shattered. Question for you in the comments: And I really want to know your answer. Do you think the death penalty is appropriate in cases like this? Type yes or no and tell me why. No judgment here. I want to hear real perspectives from real people. The investigation moved fast. Slower than families wanted, but faster than most realize. On December 30th, 2022, Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. He was a PhD criminology student at Washington State University, just minutes from the crime scene. The irony? He was studying criminal justice. He was learning about how to solve crimes while allegedly committing one of the worst we've seen. The evidence against him was substantial. DNA on a knife sheath left at the scene. Cell phone data placing him near the house multiple times before the murders. A white Hyundai Elantra matching his vehicle seen on surveillance footage. And testimony from surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen, who saw a figure in the house that night. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is where I need you to pay close attention because this affects all of us. In early January 2026, just weeks ago, Bryan Kohberger's sister, Mel Kohberger, sat down with the New York Times for her first public interview. This wasn't some tabloid exclusive. This was the New York Times. And what she said has divided this nation right down the middle. Before I tell you what she said, I want you to comment below. Should family members of accused criminals speak publicly? Does it help or hurt justice? Drop your opinion now. Mel Kohberger is 34 years old. She trained to be a mental health therapist. By all accounts, she's a normal person who found herself in the middle of an unimaginable nightmare. And in this interview, she revealed something that sent chills down my spine. After the murders happened but before Bryan was arrested, Mel warned her brother about the psycho killer on the loose in Moscow. She told him to be careful, to watch his back. She had no idea, zero idea, that she was potentially talking to the person who would later stand trial for those very crimes. Can you imagine that moment? When the realization hit her. When FBI agents showed up and arrested her brother. When she had to replay every conversation, every interaction, every sign she might have missed. Mel revealed something else that the media got completely wrong. Remember that drawing Bryan was holding during his sentencing? The one tabloids called creepy and disturbing? Mel drew that. Here's what Mel said that really got me thinking. She said her family has experienced their own tragedy through this. Now pause. Before you get angry, before you type that comment, let me finish. She acknowledged fully that the victims' families have suffered beyond measure. She's not comparing pain. She's not saying we have it worse. She's simply stating that her family has also been destroyed by this. And that's true, isn't it? If Bryan is guilty, and the evidence certainly suggests he is, then his family didn't just lose a son and brother. They lost who they thought he was. Every memory is now tainted. Every family photo is now evidence. Every Christmas, every birthday, every ordinary moment is now viewed through the lens of, how did we not know? Mel also revealed that Bryan had struggled with heroin addiction years earlier. He'd gotten clean. He'd turned his life around, or so they thought. He was pursuing a PhD. He seemed to be thriving. The family was proud of him. They thought he'd overcome his demons. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. Was the addiction related to what happened? Do past struggles indicate future violence? Or are we looking for patterns that don't exist? Mel told the New York Times something powerful. She said if she had ever had any reason to believe Bryan did anything wrong, she would have turned him in herself. She would have called the police. She would have betrayed her own brother for justice. Do you believe her? Comments, let me know. Do you think a sister could really turn in her brother? Or is blood thicker than justice? Now here's where this case reveals something terrifying about the direction our criminal justice system is heading, and why Mel's interview is more important than you might think. In May 2025, Bryan Kohberger pled guilty.
The murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
For the murder of Kaylee Goncalves, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
The murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
The murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
He admitted to 4 counts of first-degree murder. In exchange, he avoided the death penalty and received 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. No trial. No jury. No public examination of all the evidence. Hit the like button if you think the public deserved a trial. Hit it now. The families of the victims were divided on this decision. Some wanted closure. They wanted to avoid years of appeals and media circuses. They wanted Bryan behind bars forever with certainty. Others felt robbed. They wanted their day in court. They wanted the world to see exactly what happened to their children. They wanted the death penalty. Both positions are valid. Both come from unimaginable pain. But the plea deal reveals something crucial about American justice in 2026. We're seeing more and more high-profile cases ending in plea deals instead of trials. But because trials are expensive, they're lengthy, they're uncertain, prosecutors can lose, evidence can be thrown out, juries can be unpredictable. But here's what we lose when we skip trials: transparency, accountability, public trust, the chance for a community to heal through the judicial process, the opportunity for families to face the person who destroyed their lives. Mel's interview highlighted another dangerous trend: trial by media. Before Bryan ever set foot in a courtroom, millions of people had already decided he was guilty. TikTok detectives picked apart his every move. Reddit threads analyzed his appearance, his behavior, his academic papers. YouTubers created content declaring him a monster. Was he guilty? The evidence strongly suggests yes. Did he receive a fair presumption of innocence? Absolutely not. And that should concern all of us. Because what happens when the TikTok detectives are wrong? What happens when social media convicts an innocent person? We've seen it happen before. We'll see it happen again. Let me share something with you that most people don't know. I obtained court documents that revealed the prosecution's case had some potential weaknesses. I'm not saying Bryan is innocent. I'm saying that if this had gone to trial, his defense team would have raised serious questions. The DNA on the knife sheath? It was touch DNA, which is controversial in forensic science. The cell phone data? It placed him near the area, but not definitively inside the house. The eyewitness testimony? It came from a traumatized survivor who saw a figure briefly in dim lighting. Again, this doesn't mean he's innocent. The totality of evidence is compelling, but it does mean that a jury might have had questions. It does mean that the case wasn't as airtight as media coverage suggested. Are you starting to see the dangerous direction? We're creating a system where public pressure forces plea deals, where social media outrage replaces due process, where the court of public opinion matters more than the court of law. Subscribe if you think we need to talk about this more. Because this isn't just about Bryan Kohberger. This is about every future case. This is about your rights, your family's rights, your community's rights. Let me get personal again for a moment. Remember I told you about my parents? Their case is unsolved partly because investigators made assumptions early on. They focused on one suspect, ignored other leads, and by the time they realized their mistake, the trail was cold. Evidence was lost. Witnesses disappeared. The Kohberger case had the opposite problem. So much public attention, so much pressure, that the investigation had to move in one direction only. No room for doubt. No room for thorough examination. Just pressure to make an arrest, secure a conviction, give the public what they wanted. Both extremes are dangerous. Comment below if you've ever been affected by the justice system, as a victim, as a defendant, as a family member, as a witness. How did it change your perspective? I want to hear your stories. Mel's interview raises deeper questions that I think we're afraid to ask. So I'm going to ask them, and I want you to grapple with them in the comments. Question 1. Can monsters have families who love them? We want criminals to be obvious. We want them to be loners, outcasts, people we can identify and avoid. But the reality is that most violent criminals have mothers who love them, sisters who defend them, friends who never saw it coming. Bryan Kohberger wasn't a stereotype. He was pursuing higher education. He had family who cared about him. He'd overcome addiction. On paper, he was succeeding. And that terrifies us because it means evil can look like anyone. In the comments, have you ever known someone who turned out to be completely different than you thought? Tell me your story. Question 2. What do we owe the families of criminals? Mel Kohberger didn't commit any crime. Neither did Bryan's parents or other siblings. They're victims too, victims of his choices, victims of public hatred, victims of a justice system that offers them no support. Should we hate them? Should we harass them? Should we make their lives miserable because of what their family member allegedly did? I've read comments on other videos calling for the Kohberger family to be investigated, fired from their jobs, driven out of their community. Is that justice? Or is that mob mentality? Type compassion if you think families of criminals deserve support. Type justice if you think they should face consequences too. Let's see where this community stands. Question 3. Are we too invested in true crime? Here's an uncomfortable truth. We, as a society, are obsessed with murder. We turn it into entertainment. We create podcasts, YouTube videos, TikToks, documentaries. We discuss these cases like they're TV shows instead of real tragedies. I'm part of this. You're part of this by watching. We're all part of a machine that profits from tragedy. And I think Mel's interview forces us to confront that. These are real people. Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan were real. Their families are real. Their pain is real. And yes, Bryan's family is real too. Their devastation is real too. When does our interest in justice become exploitation? When does awareness become entertainment? When do we cross the line? I don't have the answer, but I think we need to ask the question. So what does Mel Kohberger's Bombshell interview really tell us? What's the deeper message here? It tells us that we're failing at nuance. We're failing at holding two truths at the same time. We can believe Bryan Kohberger is guilty and recognize that his family is suffering. We can demand justice for the victims and question whether plea deals serve justice. We can be interested in true crime and respect the humanity of everyone involved. The dangerous direction this case represents isn't about Bryan's guilt or innocence. It's about how we as a society process tragedy. It's about how social media has changed criminal justice. It's about how we've lost the ability to sit with complexity. Everything is black and white now. Guilty or innocent. Good or evil. Victim or villain. But real life exists in the gray areas. Real people are complicated. Real justice requires thought, not reaction. If you're still watching, drop a comment saying, "I'm still here." I want to know how many of you are truly engaged with this difficult conversation. Because this is where real change happens, when we're willing to sit with discomfort and ask hard questions. Mel's interview was brave. I don't care what side you're on, it took courage to speak publicly knowing she'd be attacked from every angle. She knew people would accuse her of defending a killer. She knew people would say she's trying to profit from tragedy. She knew the risks, but she spoke anyway. Because she wanted people to understand that there's more to this story than headlines. That her family is human. That they're grieving too. You don't have to agree with her. You don't have to like her. But you can acknowledge her humanity. Hit subscribe if you appreciate content that makes you think instead of just feel. Because this channel is different. I'm not here to give you easy answers. I'm here to dig deeper. Let me bring us back to what matters most. Because in all of this discussion about plea deals and family interviews and justice systems, we cannot lose sight of 4 young people who had their futures stolen. Kaylee Goncalves would be 23 now. She'd probably be working her dream job. Maybe she'd be engaged. Maybe she'd be planning a wedding. Maybe she'd be calling her mom to talk about her day. We'll never know because that chance was taken from her. Madison Mogen would be 23. She'd be making a difference in the world like she planned. She'd be traveling, creating, living, loving. All of that is gone. Xana Kernodle would be 22. She'd be building her career. Maybe she and Ethan would have gotten married. Maybe they'd be talking about kids one day. Maybe they'd be living in a different city, chasing their dreams together. That future doesn't exist anymore. Ethan Chapin would be 22. His siblings would still have their triplet. His parents would still have their son. He'd be coaching kids, planning adventures, living the life he worked so hard to build. Instead, his family has an empty chair at every holiday. If you've watched this far, I need you to do something for me. I need you to type the name of one of these victims in the comments. Type Kaylee or Madison or Xana or Ethan. Let's fill this comment section with their names. Let's remind the world that they existed, they mattered, and they're not forgotten. Their families will never be the same. Kaylee's parents have become advocates for victim rights. They've had to watch their daughter's name attached to endless true crime content. They've had to see photos of the crimes seen leaked online. They've had to hear theories and conspiracies about their daughter's final moments. Can you imagine? Madison's family has had to do the same. Xana's family. Ethan's family. They don't get to grieve privately. Their pain is public. Their tragedy is content. And for what? So we can feel something? So we can feel safer by understanding evil? So we can convince ourselves it could never happen to us? The reality is that it could. That's the terrifying truth. Evil doesn't announce itself. Danger doesn't always look dangerous. Safety is an illusion we create to get through the day. But these families don't have that illusion anymore. They know the truth, and they have to live with it, and the rest of us? We'll move on to the next case, the next tragedy, the next story that captures our attention and makes us feel something. But before we move on, I want us to learn something. I want us to take something away from this besides just information about a crime. What I want you to learn is this: justice is complicated. Truth is nuanced. People are complex. And our responsibility as consumers of true crime content is to never forget the humanity of everyone involved. We can't just click, watch, and scroll. We have to think. We have to question. We have to hold ourselves accountable for how we engage with tragedy. If you're with me on this, subscribe to this channel. Because I promise you, this is not your typical true crime content. I'm not here to sensationalize. I'm not here to exploit. I'm here to investigate, to analyze, to push for justice, and to never forget why this matters. Every case I cover, I think about my parents. I think about the justice they never got. And I think about how I can do better, be better, demand better from our system. That's why I travel city to city. That's why I spend my own money on court documents and prison records. That's why I sleep in my car sometimes to afford the next investigation. Because this matters. Justice matters. Truth matters. And you matter. Your voice in the comments matters. Your perspective matters. Your demand for better matters. Here's what I need from you right now. First, if you haven't already, type Amen for Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. Let's get thousands of amens in this comment section. Let's show their families that the world hasn't forgotten. Second, tell me where you're watching from. I want to see how far this case has reached. Are you in the US? Canada? Europe? Asia? Australia? Drop your location. Let's build a global community that cares about justice. Third, answer this question in the comments. What case should I cover next? What unsolved case deserves attention? What tragedy has been forgotten? Tell me and I'll investigate. I read every single comment, and I take your suggestions seriously. Fourth, and this is crucial, subscribe to this channel. Here's why it matters. YouTube's algorithm promotes content based on engagement. Every subscriber tells YouTube that this work is important, that justice content matters, that we want depth, not just quick hits and sensationalism. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting me. You're supporting every family still waiting for answers. You're supporting the idea that justice should be thorough, thoughtful, and fair. You're voting for the kind of content you want to see in the world. And if you're already subscribed, hit that notification bell. Turn on all notifications. Because I post deep dives like this regularly, and you don't want to miss them. Fifth, share this video. Send it to someone who cares about justice. Post it on your social media. Text it to a friend. Because the more people who engage with content like this, the more pressure we put on the system to do better. Let's zoom out for a moment. Because the Bryan Kohberger case isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a larger pattern that we need to recognize. We're seeing more campus crimes. We're seeing more cases where the perpetrator is highly educated, seemingly successful, someone who doesn't fit the profile. We're seeing more plea deals to avoid difficult trials. We're seeing more trial by social media. And we're seeing more failures to prevent these tragedies before they happen. Every time one of these cases breaks, we ask the same questions. How did we miss the signs? Why didn't someone say something? What could have been done differently? But then we forget. We move on. And the cycle repeats. Until we commit to systemic change, better mental health resources, better threat assessment protocols, better support for at-risk individuals, better training for law enforcement, better victim services, better family support, we will continue to see these tragedies. The dangerous direction isn't just about this case. It's about our collective failure to learn from these cases. I also want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. You're thinking, why should I care about another criminal case? This happens all the time. What makes this one special? And you're right. Tragically, you're right. People are murdered every day. Families are destroyed every day. Justice is delayed or denied every day. But that's exactly why we should care. Because if we become numb to it, if we accept it as normal, then we've lost our humanity. We've accepted that some lives matter less than others. We've decided that justice is only for those whose cases go viral. I refuse to accept that. My parents' case didn't go viral. It didn't get national coverage. It didn't become a Netflix documentary. But their lives mattered. Their justice matters. And every case I cover is a reminder that every victim matters. Every family matters. Every unsolved case deserves attention. That's the real reason I do this work. Not for views. Not for subscribers. Not for money. But because someone has to give a damn. Someone has to keep asking questions. Someone has to demand better. If you give a damn too, let me know in the comments. Type I care and tell me why. Tell me your story. Tell me why justice matters to you.